storm. So, all right. This is also your time to ask questions. And we're going to talk about the flooding threat. Okay. So, all of us are under a flood watch, and the flood warnings, the aerial flood warnings, are along the Route 19 corridor from Raleigh County into McDowell County. We also have the river flood warning, that is for the Greenbrier River in Summers, Monroe, and Greenbrier County, specifically in Alderson. Now, what you see back into the south and west in Kentucky, I believe those are flood emergencies because they're in a different color. So that's what's going on right now. So here's what we see. So the warm front is almost stalled just to our south, and you see these bands of rain moving through. For those of you in eastern Fayette and Raleigh, western Greenbrier and Pocahontas County, there is some ice accretion going on there. And that ice, I don't know how much is added up so far, but I'm thinking about 1/10 of an inch from what I've seen. But if those of you who live in those areas could chime in with how much ice you've had, that would be great. Otherwise, if you see these dark green and the yellow and red echoes on your screen, that's very heavy rain that is repeatedly moving across the same region. So it's been moving across the southern coal fields into our area of Beckley. That's why the flood warnings have been instigated by the Weather Service. That is for streams and creeks to come out of their banks. And specifically, I noticed that, and I'm glad they did, some of the verbiage in their flood warnings indicate that the ground is saturated and ripe for landslides and debris flows on steep areas around the area. So if you live near the base of a hillside, landslides, and watch for trees leaning in unusual directions. We've been mentioning that all week, and I firmly believe there are unfortunately going to be multiple landslides across our region. This warm front is actually moving a little bit slower than anticipated, so it's going to take its good old time moving across the region. So these heavier echoes are going to continue to move across our region, and I'll get to the rainfall in a second. One thing I want to point out to you, if you see this zone from Charleston to Beckley that has very little in the way of echoes, that is beam blockage. There is a hillside south and east of the radar dome in Charleston that prevents some of those echoes from being realized. So it is raining steadily, moderately in Raleigh County. It's just that beam blockage. Now, as this system continues to move north and we get some deeper moisture in here, that is going to be overcome. Okay, so that's currently what's going on across our region. Now let's zoom out a bit. This is the stationary front. It's not moving very fast at all. Typically, you're going to get your heaviest rain along a stationary front or a slowly moving warm front. So we have multiple flood warnings across Kentucky right now, into our region, but the heaviest rain axis has been just to our south. What's concerning is that this warm front is ever so slowly moving north, and you can see the plume on the water vapor imagery. We keep getting back building of moisture in the mid-levels off towards the south and west. What this spells is a big jump in the rainfall totals that we expect this weekend. Initially, we were thinking about 1 to 2 inches. Now we're looking at 2 to 3.5 inches across the region. This takes us through the duration of the event, and about 2 inches as you head into the southeastern part of the Greenbrier Valley. Now, with that in mind, we have the severe threat also on Sunday. So what's going to happen is this warm front eventually is going to move north around midnight, and the rain is going to shut off. Tomorrow, the wind picks up in the morning, and then the actual cold front comes through late in the morning. I'm timing it between 5 and 11 a.m. tomorrow, and I do think there's a really good opportunity for wind gusts to exceed 40 miles an hour, very heavy rain as that front comes through. Now, this is all that we need in 6 hours to trigger widespread flooding across the region. So you can see we're in that 2 to 2.5 inch range across Route 19 with an inch across the Greenbrier Valley. So this is what we are expecting going forward. The heaviest rain rates as that stationary front turns into a warm front and moves north will be between 2 and 9 p.m. Widespread flooding is likely across the region. Also, as we get some instability aloft with this system, that will produce thunder. So the thunder will coincide with the heaviest rain rates. I do expect that there's going to be multiple mudslides across the region by 6 to 7 o'clock this evening. The rain will come to a halt. It'll end around midnight. And like we're seeing in Kentucky, I do think somewhere in our area, where it's going to be is unpredictable at this point, but somewhere in our 9 or 10 county area, there will be flash flood emergencies likely issued. That means that there is flooding that is about to occur that's going to threaten lives and homes and push homes off foundations and mudslides of that sort. That's the highest level flash flooding highest level flash flood alert issued from the Weather Service. So with that in mind, let's take a look at what we are expecting tomorrow. So tomorrow morning, the warm front pushes through. The wind increases out of the south at 15 to 20 miles an hour. That itself, plus the extremely saturated ground, is going to start generating power outages. If they don't start tonight with the heavy rain, they'll definitely be in place tomorrow. Now, the cold front, this cold front is probably one of the biggest cold fronts we've had move through this state in a long time. Squall line of wind, downpours, falling temperatures likely between 6 and 11 a.m., big increase in power outages, lots of folks in the dark, and the flooding will continue. And after that, we're going to get temperatures dropping. We'll have an inch of snow between 7 p.m. tomorrow night and Monday morning, and likely a flash freeze. One thing that Christian mentioned yesterday was all the cold weather that we had in the last 24 to 48 hours. What that has done is frozen the water in the pipes that extend from these overpasses across the interstates. That means they can't readily drain water. Those areas will see standing water if they aren't right now. And I am extremely concerned as well, not only about, I'm extremely concerned about the entire region, but specifically in the Greenbrier Valley, where we have, as of yesterday, about 2 to 3 inches of snow on the ground. There's a lot of standing water in spots. I think that the Greenbrier Valley itself is going to be particularly hit hard with this system. And Christian is going to do a separate Facebook Live this afternoon on the river flooding that is expected. We're talking about the Greenbrier River and some of those gauges that we talked about yesterday, the Meadow River, etc. Because I think that the stage level on the Greenbrier River at all different junctions is going to be a bit higher than what is forecast right now, given the increase in the amount of rainfall that we expect. So, what you want to do is I would move to, if you live in a lower lying spot, I would move to higher ground right now before the flooding gets out of hand. And I would prepare for mudslide. How do you prepare for a mudslide? Well, obviously you want to go to the highest spot, but I would advise not traveling at night. If you have to travel, I would travel during the day when you have at least a little bit more visibility. And the reason I say that is because if you're driving a back road, and yes, you're watching out for standing water, you never want to drive across a flooded road. You want to turn around so you don't drown, because the water is usually deeper than what it appears. That's the motto that we go by, and that helps to save your life. But when you go around a turn, you never know if you're going to see or hit a mudslide very quickly. And as soon as you hit it, you are definitely going to lose traction. And most of our rain will have fallen by that point, and I do expect, at least with this first round, the second round we'll get tomorrow. But the rainfall map I just showed you here, let me go back to it. All right, it was this one. So this is the accumulated rainfall throughout the entire weekend, considering that we're going to have about 60 to 70% of that rain by midnight tonight. And then when the front comes through tomorrow, we'll likely get another 3/4 of an inch to an inch of rain again. that is accounted for in this 2.5 to 3.5 inches of rain that we are expecting. So you want to make sure you have your backup generator ready, because these winds with the front, I don't think, let me check on this, I don't think the Weather Service has issued a wind advisory. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. All right, no. So we don't have a wind advisory yet for the region. No, just the flood watches and warnings. I would expect the Weather Service to issue a wind advisory for the event tomorrow afternoon, and the wind advisory criteria is wind gusts to 45 miles an hour, which I think would be a pretty good precursor to what we are going to see. And keep in mind, even if most people kind of relate whichever type of wind alert that you get with the number of power outages. So, a wind advisory versus a high wind warning, people might take extra precaution with a high wind warning, because that means that the wind gusts are going to be stronger, and stronger gusts typically lead to more power outages. In our case, with the entire ground being completely saturated in flooding, what that does is loosens the soil so that when these trees start to move, it doesn't require a 45 to 55 mile an hour gust to knock it down. So I think that the number of power outages across our region is going to be very high. It could even be as high as it was whenever we had the early April severe weather event across the region, because we have widespread flooding that's likely going to unfold. And I was looking at a couple things earlier, including the Weather Prediction Center, which just highlighted our entire region as concerns for widespread flash flooding, which matches our thoughts as well, because we have the stationary front that's just to our south, and I'll bring up the radar again because that's a little bit more important, and that shows you a lot more information.